Hey guys, MetalJesus here, and today I am back with a video titled Top 5 Games That Really Surprised Me. This video is inspired by games like the 2013 Tomb Raider reboot that happened, or maybe the PSP version of Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast. You know, for whatever reason, my expectations were low, specifically in the case of Tomb Raider, the reboot. You know, this is coming off of some pretty mediocre or perhaps even just uninspired Tomb Raider games to just have the series completely be rebooted and be completely awesome. Or in the case of Outrun, I mean, you know, I liked the original arcade game, but I was blown away by how awesome 2006 version was. And so in this video, I'm going to share 5 games that really surprised me, really blew me away, just ended up being way better than I expected for whatever reason. Starting with Astros Playroom on the PlayStation 5. Now, I know this is not technically a traditional game. It's actually a tech demo that's included with every PlayStation 5, but if you played it, it's way bigger and way more in-depth than most tech demos. It feels like a full-fledged game. And essentially it's designed to be a showcase for the power of the PlayStation 5, both in its processing as well as its extremely low load times. But really where it shines is how well it shows off that new PS5 controller. And honestly, it's amazing. It's a must play. It's so well designed. It's so much fun. And there are so many really cool collectibles to find throughout this. It's a dream come true for any PlayStation fan. And the fact that it's automatically included with the PS5 and considered a demo of sorts, that maybe people would skip it, but I am telling you, you have to try it. Even if you don't own a PS5, maybe you're not even interested in a PS5, you gotta give this a shot because I'm telling you, it's way better than you think. Next up, oh man, is a PlayStation 2 classic that completely took me by surprise when this came out, Katamari Damacy. Now, when I first heard of this game, I thought the premise was pretty intriguing. Basically, you are this prince that's going around Earth trying to build up this ball with all the stuff that is on Earth, basically increasing its mass to where you get to a certain level. And essentially your father takes that and jettisons it into the sky to turn it into a star. It's a very bizarre concept, I totally get it, but the idea of rolling this ball around and collecting these things is incredibly addictive. And what makes this game really fun and also challenging is that depending on the size of the ball, you can or cannot pick up things around you. So you're constantly moving around, trying to build the mass, grow the ball so that you can pick up bigger and bigger things, all while trying to avoid different obstacles and trying to do this within a certain time limit. And the game is super fun. It did not disappoint, but there's a couple things that really surprised me about this. The first one being that it uses traditional old school tank controls, which typically I hate, right? If you go back to the original PlayStation 1 and so many of those third-person games like Resident Evil, they use tank controls and they're terrible, but in this game it makes sense. It's part of the challenge of playing this game and it fits perfectly. Another thing is the story in this game is incredibly wacky and charming to the point where you just scratch your head sometimes when you're watching some of the cutscenes. It's so weird. You just kind of have to just give into it and just go with it. And it's, again, it's so funny. And then there's the soundtrack, which I consider to be one of the best gaming soundtracks of all time. I love it so much that I also bought the special edition vinyl release of it a few years ago. Just absolutely amazing. This game took my expectations, which were already probably pretty good when I first heard about this, but then just blew it away. It completely surprised me. Now, here's a game that really took me by surprise. It is called Beat Saber. I'm sure many of you have already heard of this game. It's a rhythm game, but the way you interact with this is almost like a Star Wars Jedi. You have these two sabers here, and then what you're trying to do is cut into these different blocks that are based on the time of the game. And it's just so much fun. And by the way, guys, I know there's nothing attractive about watching an overweight, middle-aged man play this game. I apologize in advance. Now, I played a lot of games that are somewhat similar to this, like Guitar Hero and Rock Band, and those are really fun. But there is something just absolutely magical about this game when you play it in VR. It is a perfect experience for VR. I know it's kind of hard to see in this because you're probably watching this, 2D, I assume, right, on YouTube. But when you play this in 3D and those blocks are coming towards you, it's cool. And the feel and the timing of this game is absolutely perfect. That's really important in rhythm games. If that's off even a little bit, it can completely ruin the experience. But I have to tell you, the timing in this game is just flawless. I mean, it just feels so good, so natural. My only complaint about this game is that there's just not enough licensed music for it, or at least licensed music that I'm into. Rock Band, when that started getting really popular, there were just a ton of different songs that you could buy in there, download across every genre. And so Beat Saber doesn't have a ton of rock or metal tracks in there. It's mostly electronic music. Not everything. There is some Green Day and there's some Linkin Park and things like that. But I would like to see some classic metal, some newer stuff. I think that would be really cool. But every time somebody asks me what they should check out in VR, one of my first recommendations will always be Beat Saber. Oh boy, next up is a bit of a controversial one, I think, because it is Super Mario Odyssey. This game really surprised me. Why did it surprise me? Well, it's because, quite frankly, by the time that this was announced, Nintendo already had a bunch of 3D Mario games on the Wii and the Wii U. And I was thinking that, maybe they're kind of running out of ideas. When I heard about this one, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to really care. Well, I was 100% wrong. I've said it before, and it's so true, is that this is the type of game that I'll point to that Nintendo hasn't ran out of good ideas. It's amazing to me when I think about that. All these decades later, Nintendo is still coming up with really fun, really fresh ideas for pretty much all of their franchises. And again, this is no exception. I'm just blown away by how much fun this game is, how much it continued to just surprise me at every single level. It's incredible. And it all comes down to the use of that cap. That's the one big unique feature in this game, is that Mario can pretty much take over a ton of different characters in this, both the enemies and the good guys and everybody in between, and it just mixes it up. It just makes this game so much more fun and also, again, just so surprising. And I've mentioned it before, and it's so true, that this is the type of game where I go back and play it pretty much every Christmas. It's just one of those games where as Christmas rolls around, I get in the mood to replay this. And the funny thing is, I always discover something new. It's flawless, and it was a total surprise. And then we have Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII on the PSP. Now, when I first heard of this game, it was announced as a prequel to Final Fantasy VII, the classic, the legendary game that came out on the PS1. And I gotta be honest with you, I typically don't like prequels. And the reason why I typically don't like prequels is because we kind of already know what happens, right? It seems like we're gonna get a story about something I don't necessarily care about because we all know how this turns out. Well, I was completely wrong with Crisis Core. It's amazing. First off, the backstory in this game is really interesting because you get to play as Zack and kind of how he discovers all of this stuff that's going to happen in the main game. And by the way, this is not a short game. This is actually a 20-hour RPG. And so there is a lot of story here. And it brings just enough stuff to the story of Final Fantasy VII that actually I really enjoyed it. Actually, thinking about it now, I kind of compare it to Star Wars Rogue One, another prequel that I ended up really liking, right? Because that goes right into episode 4, and it just brings enough new stuff that you don't feel like you're wasting your time. It's really well self-contained. It's really well designed. And then there's the combat system, which in the original Final Fantasy VII, it was the traditional square turn-based combat, which we all know and love, but it was getting a little bit dated. And so I really appreciate what they did here. They took a chance at the time. They basically made it real time. And then what you do down there, down in the lower right there, is that you can select his action. And so you can, in real time, go from just a normal attack to doing magic to doing items, and it all is happening in real time. But in addition to that, you'll notice in the upper left there is a slot machine. And so essentially what that is doing all the time in combat is the ability or the likelihood that that slot machine will come up and give you some sort of power up or some sort of special attack, or maybe even in the middle of combat, it'll just level you up. And so it gives this level of surprise and unpredictability in combat, which I found very addictive. And as you can see here, the graphics are very good, again, especially for the PSP, right? And so they definitely put some time and money into this game, which is very cool. And again, it's exclusive to the PSP. This turned out to be one of my favorite RPGs on that handheld. I'm surprised that they haven't done some sort of HD remaster or brought it over to some other system. I think that would be pretty cool. So that is my top 5 games that definitely ended up surprising me. Obviously, with so many games released over the last several decades, I could probably keep going on and on and on. But I would love to know what games ended up surprising you. Post a comment down below. And as always, guys, I want to thank you for watching my channel. Thank you for subscribing, and take care.